Hi, this is Amazon's Communication Breakdown, a presentation by Sydney Burris Rodriguez. This is for the class of Psychology 575, Industrial and Organizational Psychology with Dr. Kimberly Smart. Amazon is a titan of global commerce. Its algorithms know what you want before you do, but behind this seamless customer experience lies a workplace culture that's been described as intense, secretive, and emotionally taxing. From one-click shopping to cloud computing, it's a company that reshaped how the world buys, sells, and connects. But behind the algorithm and Prime deliveries, it's also Prime Day, lies a workplace culture that's far less seamless than its customer experience. Amazon's internal communication systems designed for speed, precision, and control often leave employees feeling unheard, unsupported, and expendable. The company's obsession with efficiency has birthed practices that prioritize metrics over meaning and silence over dialogue. Industrial and organizational psychology teaches us that communication is the lifeblood of any healthy organization. It's not just about transmitting information, it's about fostering trust, empathy, and collaboration. When communication breaks down, so does morale, creativity, and ultimately performance of employees. This presentation pulls back the curtain on Amazon's internal communication practices through real-world examples of psychological insights. We'll explore how a company built to serve millions may be failing the very people who make it run. In a 2015 New York Times investigation, a former HR director used the term purposeful Darwinism to describe Amazon's annual culling of low performers. Employees reported forming informal alliances to protect themselves from negative feedback, while others described crying at their desks and feeling disposable after personal hardships like illness or family emergencies affected their work. One employee adjusted her schedule to care for her child, only to anonymously be criticized and told her manager could not defend her if peers said she was underperforming. Another said he saw coworkers break down emotionally on a regular basis, even going as far as saying, "You walk out of the conference room and you'll see a grown man covering his face." This culture reflects a high-pressure, low-support environment which contradicts key principles of industrial and organizational psychology. One of those principles being Herzberg's theory. Fear and competition may drive short-term results, but fail to sustain long-term motivation. Another one being the organizational justice theory also warns that perceived unfairness, especially in performance evaluations, can lead to disengagement, burnout, and high turnover. Psychological safety is essential for innovation and collaboration. In Amazon's case, the fear of being cold discourages risk-taking and honest feedback, replacing trust with self-preservation. While Amazon's system may optimize for efficiency, it risks alienating the very talent it seeks to cultivate. The message is clear: perform or perish. But in the long run, this Darwinian model may erode morale, creativity, and human connection that drives meaningful work. Another example being, in January 2020, a different kind of storm hit Amazon, specifically through its own employees. Members of Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, a worker coalition, publicly criticized the company's environmental practices and its ties to oil and gas companies. They weren't alone. Hundreds of Amazon employees shared similar concerns, but instead of engaging in dialogue, Amazon responded with a threat, saying that speaking publicly without approval violated corporate policy. 2 employees were warned that further public criticism could result in termination. In response, over 340 employees published a coordinated protest, defying the policy and calling for change. This incident reflects a breakdown in ethical and organizational communication. According to the organizational justice theory, employees who feel they cannot voice concerns without retaliation often disengage and distrust leadership. Psychological safety, which was noted above, is compromised when self-censorship replaces genuine feedback. Externally, Amazon's stance sparked criticism over free speech, transparency, and corporate accountability. Internally, it sent a message that silence is safer than honesty, jeopardizing trust, morale, and the potential for meaningful cultural transformation. Neutrality in the workplace refers to being impartial, fair, and having an absence of bias, especially in communication, conflict resolution, and decision making. It's the ability of leaders, systems, and policies to treat all employees equally without favoritism, retaliation, or hidden agendas. Neutrality fosters trust, psychological safety, and open dialogue, which are essential for a healthy organizational climate. As previously discussed, Amazon has faced backlash for threatening to fire employees who spoke out against climate concerns. The company's external communications policy was used to silence internal dissent. This response was seen as retaliatory rather than neutral, especially since the criticism involved ethical concerns and public interest. Neutral leadership requires transparency, fairness, and a willingness to listen. Amazon's critics argue that its top-down decisions and punitive systems reflect a bias toward control and efficiency, often at the expense of employee well-being and trust. Groupthink in the workplace is a psychological phenomenon where the desire for harmony or conformity within a group leads to poor decision-making. Instead of critically evaluating ideas, team members suppress dissent, ignore alternatives, and go along with the dominant viewpoint, even if it is flawed. This can lead to missed opportunities, ethical blind spots, and innovation stagnation. Amazon's culture, while innovative, has been criticized for fostering conditions that can lead to groupthink. For example, Amazon replaced PowerPoint with 6-page memos read silently at the start of meetings. While this encourages deep thinking, it can also discourage spontaneous dialogue and limit real-time idea exchange. Amazon leadership has made sweeping decisions like the return to office mandates without broad employee input. This led employees to report feeling excluded and distrusting of leadership. The lack of dialogue reinforces conformity and discourages pushback. Groupthink thrives in environments where risk-taking is punished, dissent is discouraged, and leadership is seen as infallible. Amazon's high-performance culture, while effective in many ways, has been critiqued for creating exactly those conditions. Amazon often aims to display a calm and confident demeanor when communicating externally, whether in times of scrutiny or not. This portrays an obvious confidence and trust around the message that is being delivered. However, from an industrial and organizational psychology perspective, Amazon's external communication style may undermine organizational trust, psychological safety, and signal low transparency. This in turn affects employee morale and stakeholder confidence, and create a reputational gap between internal culture and external messaging. We see this in examples like 1. Amazon has been accused of dodging scrutiny during investigations by misusing legal privilege to withhold documents from regulators. The Federal Trade Commission found that Amazon's legal team improperly labeled documents as privileged to avoid disclosure. This undermines trust and raises questions about the company's commitment to accountability. 2. Amazon's press releases and executive statements often reflect a one-way narrative focused on corporate goals with little room for stakeholder dialogue. Employees have criticized Amazon's climate messaging as inconsistent. They have partnerships in oil and gas industry, yet they externally release statements of dedication to climate responsibility. The company's response to criticism tends to be tightly scripted, avoiding direct engagement and opposing voices. Amazon often responds to criticism after public pressure rather than initiating transparent conversations. For example, its climate pledge announcement came just before a planned employee walkout regarding climate concerns. Critics saw this as a PR move rather than a genuine shift in values. Amazon can rebuild its internal and external communication patterns by embracing transparency, empathy, and inclusivity, core principles of industrial and organizational psychology. Internally, Amazon can focus on improving internal communication processes by fostering two-way dialogue, implement regular interactive town halls where employees can ask leadership their questions directly, use employee feedback platforms that encourage open and honest input to build trust. They can redesign their performance feedback systems. They can train managers in constructive communication and emotional intelligence to reduce the current fear-based culture. They can promote psychological safety by encouraging teams to share ideas without fear of retaliation. And they can recognize and reward collaborative behavior, not just individual performance. Externally, they can improve communication processes by increasing transparency. They can do this by sharing real metrics on sustainability, labor conditions, and diversity, not just polished PR statements. Furthermore, they can also respond to criticism with acknowledgement and action plans, not defensiveness. Lastly, they can also work on empowering employee advocacy. They can do this by allowing employees to speak publicly on ethical issues without fear of retaliation. And another great way to accomplish this would be to create an ambassador program that could highlight employee voices and concerns in authentic ways and create a building bridge between employees and leadership. These are the references used to complete this presentation. Thank you very much.